It often starts with the promise of love, money, or a new life. But how it ends is very different. We're talking about human trafficking.
And here in Erie County, it's a crime that law enforcement is becoming increasingly aware of. The problem is, it's hard to see the progress. News 4's Jen Schatz tells us why in tonight's special report. Jen?
Well, Don, believe it or not, those fighting trafficking in Erie County want the number of reported cases to go up. It's not because they want to see more trafficking, but because it is so underreported. The more numbers they see means the more people they are actually helping. I spoke to a survivor from the South Towns. Her story begins the way a lot of them do.
I actually met him on Quest, the chat line.
We're not identifying this Hamburg woman for safety reasons. But for the purpose of our story, we'll call her Sarah. She's a survivor of human trafficking. Like so many trafficking situations, this one started with the promise of love, even security.
Was he a charming person?
At the beginning, yeah.
After an assault, Sarah says she was lonely and looking for support in the wrong place.
I was raped when I was 22. And at that point, I didn't know how to handle it, so I was very vulnerable and I guess susceptible to charm.
Within days of meeting him, Sarah was forced into prostitution. If she didn't meet her daily quota of earning $1,000 a day, there would be trouble.
I had witnessed him, break one of the other girls' noses.
For years, she lived in fear, controlled and manipulated.
It's all over Erie County.
In November, Erie County District Attorney John Flynn used a 2007 state statute to put trafficker Derek Harris away for 11 years.
You are a soulless, cold-hearted, evil person.
Harris has no connection to Sarah. However, his case was a landmark one. It was the first time the Erie County DA's office used that 2007 statute to prosecute. It mirrors federal law, which, among other things, directly connects trafficking and prostitution to drugs.
This problem of sex trafficking is related to the opioid epidemic.
Sarah was addicted to crack cocaine.
It seemed like the police officers would think, oh, she's just a drug addict.
Nobody knows how big a problem it is.
This is Amy FLEISCHAUER. She works at the International Institute of Buffalo, helping women like Sarah move forward after trafficking.
So many survivors that we work with already have long criminal histories because either the survivor was too afraid to say the truth of what happened when they were being arrested, or they were not believed or not asked the right questions.
While Sarah's trafficker was sentenced to several years in federal prison, she too was given a sentence, a record that follows her everywhere.
I met my trafficker in the summer of 2007, which is also when my charges started to occur.
She's got more than 20 of them, ranging from possession to prostitution, disorderly conduct, and DWI. All a result of the work she was manipulated or coerced into doing.
They're forced to commit crimes.
And with a long rap sheet, some never get out of the cycle.
Survivors will go into rehab or be ordered to go into rehab, and as soon as they get out, they have a long criminal history. When most people in recovery are getting out of rehab, their goals are to find an apartment, to find a job, to go to school. If you have a criminal history, you can't do any of those things. And so what do? You go back to your trafficker.
New York was the first state to enact legislation that allows trafficking survivors to petition to have certain convictions tossed out. But FLEISCHAUER says more needs to be done. The Erie County Sheriff's Office heads up the Western District of New York Human Trafficking Task Force. On average, there's around 92 potential trafficking investigations a year in our area. The task force helps, on average, 78 survivors a year. Of those, 52% are adults, 48% are minors. Keep in mind, though, these numbers only show us so much. Most trafficking cases are not reported, and most victims don't speak up.
Most people are under the impression that, sex trafficking is a situation where, they're foreign-born women. The majority are local individuals born and bred here in Western New York.
Harris's victims were exploited out of an Amherst motel room. Sarah, who again is not connected to the Harris case, was also trafficked in Amherst out of a hotel near the Boulevard Mall. While victims of trafficking come from rural, urban, and suburban areas alike, investigators call these major cities in Western New York high exploitation hubs. That's where most of the business is done.
Without the survivors, we have a very difficult time to prove these cases.
It's a lot to put on traumatized individuals to have them be the only evidence against a trafficker.
FLEISCHAUER says more training will ensure trafficking survivors are asked the right questions when they're arrested and treated as victims, not criminals.
This isn't just something that happens in faraway countries or in big cities like Las Vegas or Los Angeles. It happens. It happens right under your noses.
Now, we reached out to Quest, the chat line where Sarah met her trafficker. They never got back to us, but they do say the moment you call that they are not liable for what happens next. Progress is being made locally. There's been increased federal funding, and now, get this, around a dozen agencies have staff right here dedicated to anti-trafficking work. There's also a bill in the Assembly that would expand the types of convictions trafficking survivors can have overturned. In the studio tonight, Jen Shantz, News 4 at 6.